The
Zebras never
carefree
forget their
Prince of
first dance,
Fortune.
just like I'll never forget this
Nathan
moment.
Sterling leaned back in his leather seat
Zebras
aboard
never
his
forget their
private
first
jet,
dance,
watching the
just like I'll
clouds
never
drift
forget this
past the
moment.
window. At 28 years old, he had mastered the art of living without responsibility. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from models, actresses, and socialites competing for his attention. He scrolled through them with casual indifference, deleting most without reading. Tom, his assistant, approached nervously with a tablet. "The quarterly reports look excellent, sir. The board is very pleased with the technology division's performance." Nathan barely glanced up. "Send them my regards. Now, what about that party in Paris this weekend? Did you confirm the reservation at Le Grand?" Before Tom could respond, the jet's intercom crackled to life. "Mr. Sterling, your father requests your immediate presence at the estate upon landing." It sounded urgent. Nathan rolled his eyes. Everything is urgent to father. Probably another lecture about responsibility and legacy. 3 hours later, Nathan stood in his father's imposing office. Richard Sterling, at 68, still possessed the commanding presence that had built a technology empire from nothing. His gray eyes fixed on his son with cold determination. "Your lifestyle ends today," Richard announced without preamble. Nathan laughed. "You say that every month, father. Yet here I am, still enjoying life." Richard slid a thick folder across his desk. "This is different. I have arranged your marriage. The ceremony takes place in 6 weeks." The smile vanished from Nathan's face. "You cannot be serious. This is the modern world. People do not arrange marriages anymore. The Sterling family does when necessary." Richard's voice was iron. "Our partnership with Hart Scientific Enterprises depends on this union. You will marry Professor James Hart's niece, Olivia. She is brilliant, accomplished, and perfect for stabilizing your reputation." Nathan's hands clenched into fists. "What if I refuse? Then you lose everything. No trust fund, no company position, no properties. I have already prepared the legal documents. You have one choice, son. Marry Olivia Hart, or become nobody." The unexpected encounter. 1 week later, Nathan waited impatiently at Bella Vista, the city's most exclusive restaurant. He had chosen this location deliberately, hoping the elegant atmosphere would intimidate his mysterious bride-to-be. Perhaps she would realize the absurdity of this arrangement and refuse. When the hostess led a woman to his table, Nathan looked up and barely suppressed his disappointment. Olivia Hart was tall and thin, wearing an oversized brown cardigan that hung on her frame like a tent. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight, unflattering bun. Most striking were the enormous black-framed glasses that dominated her face, making her eyes appear small and distant. "Mr. Sterling," she greeted him with a clear, emotionless voice. "I assume you are as thrilled about this arrangement as I am." Nathan studied her openly, noting her complete lack of the nervousness or admiration he typically inspired. "Olivia, correct?" He used his most charming smile. "Perhaps we can find a way to convince our families this is a terrible idea." Olivia sat down and removed her glasses to clean them with methodical precision. "There is no need, Mr. Sterling. I have accepted this arrangement fully." Nathan's smile faltered. "You want to marry me? That is certainly unusual." To his surprise, Olivia's lips curved slightly. "Not want. Need would be more accurate. Your father has offered substantial funding for my research laboratory. I am making a practical exchange. You secure your inheritance. I receive resources that could save countless lives through my work." "How romantic," Nathan muttered sarcastically. "Romance is irrelevant," Olivia replied, replacing her glasses. "I have no expectations beyond maintaining appearances. You may continue your lifestyle exactly as before, provided you show basic discretion. Our marriage will be a contract, nothing more." Nathan leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. And the wedding night? Will that also be just a formality? A faint blush colored Olivia's pale cheeks, but her voice remained steady. We will do what is legally necessary to validate the marriage. Then we resume our separate lives. I am pragmatic, Mr. Sterling, not naive. For the first time in years, Nathan found himself genuinely surprised by a woman. She showed no interest in his wealth, no fascination with his status, no desire for his attention. She treated him like a business transaction, and something about that coldness sparked his curiosity. 6 weeks then, he said finally. My father mentioned a small ceremony. 43 guests exactly, Olivia corrected, checking her phone. The ceremony is scheduled for Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. I have handled all arrangements. Your only responsibility is to appear on time and sober. Most brides want their grooms involved in planning. Olivia stood, gathering her plain brown purse with efficient movements. I am not most brides, Mr. Sterling. The sooner you understand that basic fact, the easier our cohabitation will become. She extended her hand formally. Nathan took it, noting that despite its softness, her grip was surprisingly firm. Until the wedding then, future Mrs. Sterling. Dr. Hart Sterling, she corrected coolly. I will maintain my professional identity. As he watched her walk away with purposeful, ungraceful strides, Nathan could not help thinking that their wedding night would probably be the most disappointing experience of his entire life. The ceremony of convenience. The wedding day arrived with startling speed. True to her word, Olivia had organized everything with scientific precision. The ceremony took place in a historic chapel on the Sterling estate, attended by exactly 43 guests. Olivia wore a simple ivory dress that somehow managed to hide any hint of her figure beneath layers of conservative fabric. Her hair remained in its severe bun, and she wore her oversized glasses throughout the ceremony. She looked more like someone attending a boring conference than her own wedding. Nathan went through the motions mechanically, reciting vows without emotion. When he placed the ring on her finger, it felt like signing a tedious business contract. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and their kiss was brief and cold, barely more than a formal touch of lips. At the reception, champagne flowed freely while Nathan smiled mechanically at congratulations from people he barely knew. His father watched with satisfaction, clearly pleased with this merger of families and fortunes. A practical arrangement, commented an elderly guest. Though I must say, young Olivia is quite different from your usual companions. Different is certainly the word, Nathan agreed, watching his new wife discuss quantum physics with a group of fascinated scientists. The reception ended precisely on schedule. Soon, Nathan and Olivia found themselves in a limousine heading toward the hotel where they would spend their first night as a married couple. The silence between them felt heavy and awkward. You are analyzing me again, Olivia said without turning from the window. Just wondering what convinced my father you were perfect for this role, Nathan admitted. Probably my complete disinterest in your fortune and lifestyle, she replied dryly. Novelty can be quite appealing to those accustomed to desperate admirers. The shocking revelation. In the presidential suite, Olivia observed the scattered rose petals and chilled champagne with an unreadable expression. How predictable, she murmured. The hotel assumes all newlyweds want romance, Nathan said defensively. Assumptions are often incorrect. She set down her purse with deliberate care. However, I will fulfill my part of our agreement. She walked toward the bathroom with determined steps. Nathan poured himself a generous drink, trying not to think about what would follow. He had been with countless beautiful, sophisticated women. How would it be with someone like Olivia? The thought unsettled rather than excited him. He reclined on the bed, wondering if he should suggest they forget this particular obligation. After all, who would verify whether the marriage had been properly consummated? The bathroom door opened silently. The room was dimly lit by city lights filtering through curtains. Nathan turned his head casually, expecting to see the same rigid Olivia with her enormous glasses and perpetual expression of indifference. What he saw left him completely breathless. A feminine silhouette stood outlined against soft light. Dark hair cascaded in luxurious waves over bare shoulders. Elegant curves were suggested beneath thin, silky fabric. But most striking was not her figure, which proved far more attractive than baggy clothes had suggested. It was her entire presence, completely and utterly transformed. She approached with fluid, confident movements. Without her glasses, her face revealed perfectly balanced features and deep, intelligent eyes that watched him with disconcerting intensity. "Olivia?" Nathan asked stupidly, his voice barely above a whisper. She did not respond with words. Instead, she sat beside him, took the glass from his trembling hand, sipped the champagne slowly, then leaned in to kiss him with unexpected passion. The taste of champagne on her lips was the last coherent thought Nathan registered. What followed was a whirlwind of sensations that defied everything he thought he knew about desire, about passion, about her. Her hands, which hours earlier had held a bridal bouquet with formal rigidity, now explored his body with surprising expertise. Her mouth, which had pronounced marriage vows with clinical detachment, now traced patterns along his neck that drew involuntary sounds from deep in his chest. In the darkness, Nathan could not see her face clearly, but he could feel her burning skin beneath his fingers, hear soft sounds escaping her throat, sense an intensity that shocked him completely. It was like being with an entirely different person, a fascinating stranger who bore no resemblance whatsoever to the woman he had married. Time lost all meaning. What should have been merely a formal obligation became an insatiable exploration that pushed them far beyond simple physical pleasure into something deeper, something almost frightening in its intensity. When exhaustion finally claimed them both, Nathan found himself staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with confusion and wonder. Beside him, Olivia's breathing gradually slowed into the rhythm of sleep. He turned carefully to look at her in the dim light. Even now, with her hair spread across the pillow and her features relaxed in sleep, she looked different from the woman he had met weeks ago. Beautiful in a way he had completely failed to notice. "Who are you really?" he whispered into the darkness. Olivia did not answer. She simply slept, her secret still locked safely away, leaving Nathan to wonder if he had just experienced the most incredible night of his life, or simply dreamed the entire impossible encounter, the morning after confusion. Sunlight streamed through the hotel curtains, pulling Nathan from deep sleep. He reached across the bed instinctively, but found only cool, empty sheets. Sitting up quickly, he looked around the luxurious suite with growing confusion. The bathroom door was closed. He could hear water running. Nathan rubbed his eyes, trying to reconcile his memories of last night with the cold reality of morning. Had it really happened? The passionate, confident woman who had left him breathless seemed impossible now in the harsh light of day. The bathroom door opened, and Nathan held his breath in anticipation. Olivia emerged looking exactly as she had at their first meeting. The oversized brown cardigan hung loosely on her frame. Her hair was pulled back in that same severe, unflattering bun. The enormous black-framed glasses were firmly in place, making her eyes appear small and distant once again. "Good morning," she said in that same flat, emotionless tone he remembered from the restaurant. "I have ordered breakfast. It should arrive shortly." Nathan stared at her, searching for any trace of the woman from last night. There was nothing. No warmth in her eyes, no softness in her expression, no acknowledgement whatsoever of what they had shared. "Olivia," he began carefully, "about last night." She held up one hand, cutting him off efficiently. "We fulfilled the requirements of our agreement. There is no need for discussion or analysis. I have work at the laboratory this afternoon, so I will be leaving after breakfast." She spoke as if they had merely signed paperwork together, not experienced the most intense physical connection Nathan had ever known. "You cannot just pretend nothing happened," he protested, climbing out of bed and pulling on a robe. Olivia adjusted her glasses with clinical precision. Nothing of consequence happened, Mr. Sterling. We completed a necessary formality. Now we resume our separate lives as agreed. Before Nathan could respond, a knock at the door announced breakfast. Olivia answered it with professional courtesy, directing the hotel staff to set up the meal on the balcony table. She acted every bit the polite stranger, showing no intimacy or connection whatsoever. They ate in uncomfortable silence. Nathan watched her carefully, looking for cracks in her cold facade. He found none. She ate her toast methodically, reviewed emails on her phone, and checked her schedule with the efficiency of someone attending a boring business meeting. "My driver will collect me at 10, she announced, not looking up from her phone. "You are welcome to remain here as long as you wish. The suite is paid through tomorrow." "Where will you be staying?" Nathan asked, realizing suddenly that they had never discussed living arrangements. "I have an apartment near my laboratory. You may continue residing at your penthouse downtown. We can arrange occasional public appearances together to maintain proper appearances for our families." "You have thought of everything," Nathan said with unmistakable bitterness. Olivia finally looked at him directly, her expression unreadable behind those massive glasses. "Planning and organization are essential to success, Mr. Sterling. Emotion only complicates matters unnecessarily." She stood, gathering her belongings with practiced efficiency. "Thank you for your cooperation. I will contact you next week regarding the charity gala your father wishes us to attend together." Then she was gone, leaving Nathan alone in the suite with more questions than answers. The growing obsession. Over the following days, Nathan found himself unable to focus on anything except the mystery of his wife. He cancelled meetings, ignored calls from beautiful women seeking his attention, and spent hours staring at the single photograph from their wedding. In the picture, Olivia looked plain and unremarkable. Yet Nathan knew with absolute certainty that beneath that disguise existed someone completely different. Someone passionate, confident, and devastatingly attractive. Tom noticed his employer's strange behavior immediately. "Sir, are you feeling well? You have missed 3 important appointments this week." Nathan waved him away irritably. "Reschedule everything. I have more pressing matters to address." He began investigating his wife with the same intensity he once applied to closing business deals. He discovered that Olivia ran a small but highly respected research laboratory specializing in medical treatments for rare diseases. Her work had earned numerous awards, though she rarely attended ceremonies to accept them. She lived in a modest apartment in an older building near the university district. Her neighbors described her as quiet, polite, and utterly forgettable. She left for work early each morning and returned late each evening, always wearing oversized clothes and those ridiculous glasses. Nathan hired a discreet investigator to follow her, but the reports came back frustratingly ordinary. Olivia went to work, returned home, occasionally visited the library or purchased groceries. Nothing unusual, nothing exciting, nothing that explained the transformation he had witnessed. 3 weeks after their wedding, Nathan could no longer control his curiosity. He decided to see for himself what his wife did during her supposedly boring routine. The secret nightlife. Nathan parked his car down the street from Olivia's apartment building just after sunset. He felt ridiculous, like a character in a detective movie, but his need for answers outweighed his dignity. For 2 hours, nothing happened. Lights remained on in what he assumed was her apartment. He was beginning to think this surveillance mission was pointless when the building's front door opened. A woman emerged, and Nathan's breath caught in his throat. She wore a fitted black dress that hugged curves he remembered intimately. Her dark hair flowed loose around her shoulders in glossy waves. Even from a distance, he could see she wore subtle makeup that enhanced rather than hid her features. She walked with confidence and grace, nothing like Olivia's usual stiff, awkward movements. But it was her. Nathan knew it with absolute certainty. She climbed into a taxi, and Nathan followed at a discreet distance. The taxi wound through downtown streets before stopping at an upscale art gallery hosting a private exhibition. Nathan watched as Olivia entered confidently, greeted by name by the doorman. He waited 5 minutes before following her inside. The gallery was filled with wealthy art collectors admiring abstract paintings. Nathan spotted Olivia immediately. She stood before a large canvas, engaged in animated conversation with a distinguished older gentleman. Her laughter rang out, musical and genuine. Nathan moved closer, staying hidden behind a sculpture. "Your analysis of the color theory is fascinating, Dr. Hart," the gentleman was saying. "I had not considered that interpretation." Olivia smiled warmly. "Art and science are not as separate as people believe. Both seek to understand truth through different languages." Nathan watched, transfixed. This version of Olivia was articulate, charming, and completely comfortable in social situations. Nothing like the cold, awkward woman who had dismissed their wedding night as meaningless. Over the next hour, he observed her interact with various guests. She discussed philosophy with a university professor, debated politics with a journalist, and even flirted mildly with a handsome gallery owner. She was magnetic, drawing people to her with intelligence and warmth. When she finally left the gallery, Nathan followed her taxi to an exclusive restaurant. Through the window, he watched her meet with a group of colleagues. They laughed together, shared wine, engaged in lively debate about their research. Olivia was the center of attention, clearly respected and genuinely liked. This continued for 3 more nights. Nathan followed his wife to a classical music concert, a lecture on quantum physics, and a sophisticated dinner party at a colleague's home. Each time, she appeared as this confident, beautiful, socially skilled version of herself. Each time, she seemed like a completely different person. The confrontation. On the 4th night, Nathan waited in his car outside her apartment building. When Olivia emerged in another stunning dress, he stepped directly into her path. She froze, her eyes widening behind the contact lenses she wore for these outings. "Hello, wife," Nathan said quietly. "Lovely evening for a walk, is it not?" Olivia's expression shifted rapidly through shock, fear, and finally settled on cold anger. "What are you doing here? I could ask you the same question." Nathan gestured at her appearance. "Though I suppose the more interesting question is, who are you really?" Olivia glanced around nervously, clearly aware they were standing on a public street. "This is not an appropriate conversation for this location." "Then invite me up to your apartment," Nathan suggested. "We have much to discuss." For a long moment, Olivia seemed ready to refuse. Then her shoulders sagged slightly in resignation. "Fine. Follow me." Her apartment surprised Nathan. He had expected something cold and clinical like her daytime persona. Instead, he found a warm, inviting space filled with books, artwork, and comfortable furniture. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Fresh flowers sat in a vase by the window. Olivia removed her coat and faced him with arms crossed defensively. "You have been following me." "For 4 nights, Nathan admitted. "Trying to understand which version of you is real. The boring scientist in ugly clothes, or the fascinating woman who attends art galleries and dinner parties." "Both are real," Olivia said quietly. "Or perhaps neither is entirely true." She walked to her kitchen and poured 2 glasses of wine. When she returned, some of her defensive posture had softened. "Sit down, Mr. Stirling. Since you have invaded my privacy so thoroughly, I suppose you deserve an explanation." Nathan sat on her comfortable sofa, accepting the wine. He waited silently, sensing that pushing her now would make her retreat back into coldness. Olivia sat across from him, curling her legs beneath her in a surprisingly casual gesture. "When I was 18, she began slowly, I was very different from how I appear now during the day. I was confident, social, and perhaps too trusting. She paused, taking a sip of wine before continuing. I attended a prestigious university where I stood out academically. I was young, successful, and received considerable attention from my peers. One professor in particular showed great interest in my work. He mentored me, praised my research, made me feel special and valued. Nathan remained silent, sensing the pain beneath her carefully controlled words. He was married, though I did not know that initially. When I discovered the truth, I tried to end our relationship. He responded by attempting to destroy my academic reputation. He claimed I had plagiarized research, fabricated data, and used inappropriate methods to advance my career. Olivia's hands tightened around her wine glass. The investigation lasted 8 months. Eventually, I was completely cleared. The evidence proved his accusations were entirely false, motivated by spite and revenge. But the damage was done. Everyone remembered the scandal, not the exoneration. They remembered the accusations, not my innocence. She looked directly at Nathan, her eyes reflecting old hurt. I learned that being noticed, being attractive, being socially visible only brought pain and destruction. So I made myself invisible. I hid behind ugly clothes and glasses. I made myself forgettable and unremarkable. People stopped seeing me as a woman and started seeing me only as a scientist. The gossip stopped. The unwanted attention disappeared. I could finally focus on my work without interference. Nathan felt unexpected sympathy stirring in his chest. But at night, you become yourself again. At night, I allow myself brief moments of freedom, Olivia confirmed. In places where nobody knows me as Dr. Hart, the researcher. I can simply be Olivia, a woman who enjoys art and music and intelligent conversation. Then I return home, put the disguise back on, and resume my invisible life. What about our wedding night? Nathan asked gently. Olivia's cheeks colored slightly. That was a mistake. I allowed myself to be Olivia when I should have remained Dr. Hart. I let my guard down, and it was unprofessional. Unprofessional? Nathan repeated incredulously. We are married, Olivia. What we shared was not a business transaction. But it should have been, she insisted, her voice rising slightly. That was our agreement. A practical arrangement with no emotional complications. Emotion leads to pain, Mr. Sterling. I learned that lesson thoroughly. Nathan set down his wine glass and moved to sit beside her on the sofa. She tensed but did not pull away. Not all emotion leads to pain, he said softly. And hiding your true self is its own kind of suffering. You do not understand, Olivia whispered. You have never had to protect yourself that way. You are right, Nathan admitted. I have always been protected by wealth and status. But I am beginning to understand that protection and prison can sometimes look remarkably similar. They sat in silence for several minutes, the classical music filling the quiet space between them. What happens now? Olivia finally asked, her voice small and uncertain. Nathan reached over and carefully removed her glasses, setting them on the table. Without them, her face was open and vulnerable. Now, he said gently, we start being honest with each other. No more disguises, no more pretending. Not between us. Olivia searched his face, looking for deception or mockery. She found neither. I am not ready to be vulnerable, she admitted quietly. Then we take it slowly, Nathan replied. But I want to know my wife. The real woman, not the disguise she shows the world. For the first time since their wedding night, Olivia smiled genuinely. It transformed her entire face, making her breathtakingly beautiful. That might take considerable time, Mr. Sterling. Nathan smiled back. Fortunately, we have the rest of our lives. As they sat together in the comfortable warmth of her apartment, both realized their convenient arrangement had become something far more complicated and dangerous than either had anticipated. They were beginning to care. The gradual transformation over the following weeks, Nathan and Olivia began a careful dance of discovery. They started meeting regularly, always at her apartment where she felt safe enough to be herself. Nathan found himself canceling parties and social events, preferring quiet evenings discussing science, philosophy, and art with his brilliant wife. One evening, Nathan arrived at her apartment carrying takeout from an expensive restaurant. Olivia answered the door in casual jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She had stopped wearing the disguise around him, and Nathan treasured each glimpse of her authentic self. "You are staring again," Olivia said, a slight smile playing on her lips as she accepted the food containers. "Can you blame me?" Nathan replied, following her into the kitchen. "I am still adjusting to having a wife who looks completely different depending on the day of the week." Olivia began setting out plates. "I have been thinking about that actually. My research presentation is next month at the International Medical Conference. It is a significant opportunity for funding and recognition." "That sounds important," Nathan said, sensing hesitation in her voice. "It is." Olivia turned to face him, her expression uncertain. "I have always presented as Dr. Hart, the forgettable scientist. But lately, I have been wondering if continuing to hide is truly protecting me, or simply limiting my potential." Nathan felt hope stirring in his chest but kept his voice neutral. "What are you considering? Perhaps it is time to stop hiding completely. Not to become someone else, but to integrate both parts of myself. The serious scientist who also happens to be a confident woman." "Does that sound foolish?" Nathan moved closer, taking her hands gently. "It sounds brave. And long overdue." Olivia squeezed his hands, drawing strength from his support. "However, there is still the matter of our arrangement. We agreed to separate lives, minimal interaction beyond public appearances. Arrangements can be renegotiated," Nathan said quietly. "If both parties are willing." Before Olivia could respond, her phone rang sharply. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "It is Rachel from the laboratory." She would not call this late unless something was wrong, she answered quickly, and Nathan watched her expression shift from concern to alarm. "What do you mean the samples are missing?" Olivia demanded. "That is impossible. The security system requires 3 separate authorizations for access." She listened intently, her face growing pale. "Call the police immediately. Do not let anyone leave the building. I will be there in 15 minutes. She ended the call and grabbed her coat with shaking hands. "Someone has stolen 6 months of research samples from my laboratory. Those samples represent breakthrough treatments for childhood diseases. Without them, our entire project is ruined." "I am coming with you," Nathan said firmly, already reaching for his own coat. "This is not your concern," Olivia protested, though her voice lacked conviction. "You are my wife," Nathan replied simply. "Your concerns are mine. Besides, my family has excellent security consultants and legal resources. Let me help." For a moment, Olivia looked ready to refuse out of habit. Then she nodded gratefully. "Thank you." The crisis brings them closer. At the laboratory, they found chaos. Police officers were interviewing staff members while Rachel, a petite woman with worried eyes, explained the situation to detectives. "Dr. Hart," Rachel said with relief when she spotted Olivia. "Thank goodness you are here. The security footage shows someone accessing the storage facility at midnight last night, but their face is obscured by the camera angle. Who had access codes?" Nathan asked, immediately shifting into problem-solving mode. "Only 3 people," Rachel replied. "Myself, Dr. Hart, and our research assistant, Mark Stevens." "Where is Mark now?" Olivia asked, her voice tight with tension. "That is the problem. He did not show up for work today, and his phone goes straight to voicemail." Nathan pulled out his phone and called his head of security. Within minutes, he had arranged for a private investigator to track Mark's location and for his legal team to prepare documents to freeze any potential sale of the stolen research. Olivia watched him work with growing admiration. Nathan moved with confident efficiency, making calls, coordinating resources, and taking control of the situation with natural authority. This was a side of him she had never witnessed before. Not the carefree playboy, but a capable businessman who genuinely cared about solving problems. The police are treating this as simple theft, Nathan told her after speaking with the lead detective. But I suspect corporate espionage. Your research is worth millions to pharmaceutical companies. We need to move faster than official channels allow. What do you suggest? Olivia asked, trusting his judgment. My investigator can track Mark within hours using methods the police cannot employ. Once we locate him, we can recover the samples before they are sold or destroyed. Over the next 12 hours, Nathan and Olivia worked side by side. They reviewed security footage, interviewed staff members, and coordinated with Nathan's team of experts. Olivia was impressed by Nathan's dedication. He never complained about the late hour or missed sleep. He remained focused entirely on helping her. Around dawn, Nathan's investigator called with information. Mark Stevens had been spotted at a hotel near the airport, meeting with representatives from a rival pharmaceutical company. We have him, Nathan said grimly. But we need to act immediately before he transfers the samples. The police will need warrants, Olivia said desperately. That could take hours we do not have. Nathan smiled slightly. Which is why we are not waiting for the police. My security team is already en route to the hotel. They will recover your samples. That is illegal, Olivia protested weakly. It is aggressive protection of intellectual property, Nathan corrected. My lawyers assure me we have legal standing, especially since the samples are still technically your property until formally stolen through completed sale. 2 hours later, Nathan's security team successfully intercepted Mark Stevens in the hotel parking lot. The samples were recovered intact, and Mark was detained until police arrived to make official arrests. Olivia stood in her laboratory, holding the recovered samples with tears streaming down her face. 6 months of work, countless hours of research, and breakthrough treatments that could save children's lives were safe again. Thank you, she whispered to Nathan, who stood quietly beside her. I could not have recovered these without your help. Nathan pulled her gently into his arms. You are brilliant and capable, Olivia. But you do not have to face every challenge alone anymore. She buried her face against his chest, feeling truly safe for the first time since the crisis began. In that moment, something shifted fundamentally between them. This was no longer a convenient arrangement or a practical marriage. Something real and deep was growing. The confession of feelings. 1 week after the laboratory crisis, Nathan invited Olivia to dinner at his penthouse. She arrived wearing a beautiful blue dress, her hair styled elegantly, no longer hiding behind oversized clothes and glasses even for this private meeting. Nathan had prepared dinner himself, surprising Olivia with his culinary skills. They ate on his balcony overlooking the city lights, conversation flowing easily between them. I have been thinking about our arrangement, Nathan began carefully as they finished dessert. Olivia's hand tightened slightly on her wine glass. Oh. It is not working, Nathan continued, watching her face carefully. Disappointment flashed across Olivia's features before she could hide it. I see. You wish to dissolve the marriage? I understand. Our agreement was based on practical considerations, and perhaps those are no longer sufficient. No, Nathan said quickly, reaching across the table to take her hand. You misunderstand me completely. The arrangement is not working because I can no longer pretend this is merely a business transaction. Olivia's eyes widened. What are you saying? I am saying that I have fallen in love with my wife, Nathan said, his voice steady and sincere. I love your brilliant mind that can explain quantum physics and analyze classical art with equal passion. I love your dedication to research that helps children you will never meet. I love your courage in slowly removing the disguise you built to protect yourself. I love the woman you truly are, not the role you play for others. Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes. Nathan, I cannot. Love leads to vulnerability, and vulnerability leads to pain. Not always, Nathan insisted gently. Sometimes vulnerability leads to connection, to genuine partnership, to happiness you never imagined possible. How can you be certain? Olivia whispered. What if I remove all my defenses and you decide I am not worth the effort? Nathan stood and moved around the table, kneeling beside her chair. Look at me, Olivia. She turned to face him, tears spilling down her cheeks. I spent years surrounded by superficial beauty and empty relationships, Nathan said firmly. I thought I knew what I wanted. Then I met you, and you challenged every assumption I ever held. You showed me that real beauty comes from intelligence, integrity, and courage. You taught me that genuine connection requires honesty and vulnerability from both people. He cupped her face gently in his hands. I am not asking you to remove your defenses recklessly. I am asking you to trust me enough to lower them gradually. To give us a chance to build something real together. What if I hurt you? Olivia asked quietly. I am not practiced at relationships. I have hidden for so long that I have forgotten how to be open. Then we learn together, Nathan replied. I am not exactly an expert at genuine emotional connection either. We can figure this out as partners. Olivia searched his face, looking for any hint of deception or manipulation. She found only sincerity and hope. I love you too, she finally whispered. I have been trying to deny it for weeks, telling myself it was gratitude or attraction or anything except love. But watching you help me during the crisis, seeing your dedication and kindness, I could no longer pretend. I love you, Nathan Sterling. Nathan pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that spoke of promises and possibilities. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. The public revelation. 2 months later, the International Medical Conference arrived. Olivia stood backstage, preparing for her presentation. For the first time in 8 years, she wore no disguise. Her hair flowed naturally around her shoulders. She wore professional but flattering clothes that did not hide her figure. Subtle makeup enhanced rather than concealed her features. Nathan stood beside her, offering quiet support. You are going to be magnificent, he said confidently. What if people focus on my appearance instead of my research? Olivia worried. What if the gossip starts again? Then they are fools who do not deserve your brilliance, Nathan replied firmly. But I suspect most will be too captivated by your groundbreaking work to care about superficial matters. Dr. Hart? A conference assistant appeared. You are on in 2 minutes. Olivia took a deep breath, squeezing Nathan's hand one final time. Here we go. She walked onto the stage to polite applause. For a moment, whispers rippled through the audience as people recognized the dramatic change in her appearance. Then Olivia began speaking about her research, and the whispers died away. Her presentation was brilliant. She explained complex medical concepts with clarity and passion. She showed data demonstrating how her treatments could revolutionize care for rare childhood diseases. She answered technical questions with confidence and grace. When she finished, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Scientists who had previously overlooked her now approached eagerly to discuss collaboration. Medical journals requested interviews. Funding organizations offered substantial grants. Nathan watched from backstage with immense pride. This was his wife, finally allowing the world to see her true self without fear or shame. That evening, they celebrated at an elegant restaurant. Olivia glowed with happiness and accomplishment. Thank you for believing in me, she said, raising her glass to toast. Thank you for trusting me enough to take the risk, Nathan replied. Though truthfully, all the courage came from you. Olivia smiled. I think we both found courage we did not know we possessed. You stopped hiding behind shallow relationships and empty pleasures. I stopped hiding behind ugly clothes and false invisibility. We helped each other become authentic. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. So what happens now, Dr. Hart Sterling? Now, Olivia said with sparkling eyes, we live honestly. We work together as true partners. We build a life based on genuine love rather than convenient arrangements. And perhaps eventually, we start a family of our own. Nathan's smile widened. I like that plan very much. The happy beginning. 6 months later, Nathan and Olivia hosted a small gathering at their newly purchased home. It was a comfortable house, large enough for both Nathan's business needs and Olivia's home laboratory, but not ostentatiously massive like the Stirling family mansion. Friends and colleagues filled the rooms, celebrating the couple's genuine happiness. Rachel from the laboratory chatted with Tom, Nathan's assistant. Richard Stirling spoke animatedly with Professor James Hart about future research collaborations. Nathan found Olivia on the back terrace, looking at stars visible beyond the city lights. Hiding from your own party? He teased gently. Just taking a moment to appreciate how dramatically life can change, Olivia replied, leaning back against him as he wrapped arms around her waist. Any regrets about our forced marriage? Nathan asked. Only that I wasted so many weeks being stubborn about letting you in, Olivia admitted. I was so determined to protect myself that I almost missed the most important relationship of my life. Nathan kissed the top of her head. We both had lessons to learn. I needed to discover that real value lies beneath surface appearances. You needed to learn that vulnerability with the right person leads to strength, not weakness. Olivia turned in his arms to face him. I never imagined that an arranged marriage to a spoiled millionaire would become the greatest blessing of my life. Nathan laughed. And I never imagined that my father's ultimatum would lead me to a woman who challenges, inspires, and completes me. Though I am still slightly offended you called me spoiled. You were absolutely spoiled, Olivia insisted with a smile. But you grew beyond that. Just as I grew beyond my fears and defenses. So we saved each other, Nathan said softly. No, Olivia corrected gently. We gave each other permission to save ourselves. That is even better. They stood together under the stars, holding each other close. Behind them, laughter and music drifted from the house filled with people who genuinely cared about them. Before them stretched endless possibilities built on trust, love, and authentic partnership. What had begun as a forced arrangement between strangers had transformed into something neither had expected. They had each worn disguises to protect themselves from pain. But in removing those disguises for each other, they had discovered something far more valuable than safety. They had found true love. And that, they both realized, was worth every risk.